world, and welcome to another episode of the South African Spies podcast. I'm absolutely ecstatic to introduce today's guest. She's not only a household name, but definitely a household voice. She's a barrier breaker, a proud South African Indian, and truly someone I've looked up to and admired for many years. I'm talking about the one and only Sureshnie Rieder. So, hi, Sush, and welcome to the South African podcast.
Hey, hi Alicia. How are you? Thank you so much for inviting me.
I'm great, thanks. And I'm so excited to have you on, despite the time difference, because I know it's really early for you.
Yes. So you okay, I'm not sure how many hours you are, but we're recording this on a Saturday and it is 22 minutes past 9 a.m. for me. And what time is it
And
in
it's
your part of the world?
22 minutes 6 in the evening for me.
Okay, cool. So there's a I know there's a
Not
9 hour
too bad.
difference between me and South Africa. So at least we're in a good zone. We're in a safe zone.
Yeah, we're good.
Awesome. Thank you so
Well,
much. I appreciate the invitation.
I'm so excited to have you on and, to chat to you from one South African Indian expat
Yes.
to another.
Oh my gosh, we're expats. Imagine. Never would have imagined that I would have left sunny South Africa to be an expat living in the US of A. Yeah, so I didn't have that on my bingo card. I've never imagined living away from my family. And I think moving away from Durban was shock enough to go to Joburg. Joburg was far enough for me. I'm a homebody. So yeah, but my husband's the traveler. I always tease him about having the Christopher Columbus genes. And I said, it's about white people, man. I said, you and me are two different people. But my wonderful sense of adventure, yeah, he's lived all over the world. And the reason why we are in the US is because of him, because he got a promotion and an incredible offer that he could not say no to. But it was in the coming for 4 years. And this position kept coming up and then COVID happened, then positions were frozen, and then he was sitting in the DRC. Imagine, he was sitting in a mining site and he was like, hey, this is it. It's a yes, no kind of answer. I'm like, ooh, what are we buying? Or what are we getting? He's like, okay, do you want to go to America now? I'm like, for a holiday? He's like, no, this is it. This is the opportunity. Arizona, there's an opportunity for me. And it comes down. I'm like, okay, yeah, obviously I'll go wherever you are because I like to nag you for the rest of your life. But yes, I'm in. And then I think that's awoken my sense of adventure. So yeah, that's why I'm here as an
Just like
expat.
that.
Just like that. I said yes. I've been saying yes to this boy for many years, so why not? Yeah, absolutely. I think we were in the some people live in South Africa and they dream of living in the UK or working in Australia or seeing the world. That was never me. That was not ever one of my intentions, or I never had that ever as a dream. I always thought it would be nice to travel. I do like traveling, but like I said, I'm a homebody, and when this opportunity came, I do believe that these things happen for a reason, and the universe knows. And we always said that, for example, living in Johannesburg, we said we didn't want Parvani to turn 13 in Johannesburg. We thought maybe Cape Town would, because I think Cape Town was coming up a lot for us, and I was looking into moving. And Parvani turned 13 in Arizona, and I think that's really special. So here we are.
Well, see, that's just manifesting that you weren't going to be in Johannesburg.
No, I
Just
can't.
not realizing that it was going to be many miles
Didn't
away.
think I'd be in the desert either, but here I am with lots of water and sunblock. But yeah, making life with my family.
Yeah, I think it's a tough decision to actually decide to move, especially when it's not something like, you haven't prepped for your entire life
Yeah.
or hoped that, would one day happen.
Yeah.
It is very hard to just pack up and leave.
Yeah, and like I said, I have many family and friends who for years wanted to move to Canada, or they wanted to seek opportunities in Australia. They had that in their mindset, like, Such, this is where the country's going for me, or this is what I feel my opportunities are, or I want to give my child the Great Barrier Reef. I never had that. I never ever said to Mahavi at any point. I mean, I remember when we were first newly married, within the year he was offered something in Canada, and I said, listen, my man, there are no Indians there that survive snow. In my genetics, I don't have it. So if we go, I am going to die. And let me let me give you context to who I am. I am a human that needs warmth 24/7. We live in a state that is absolutely hot. So you can imagine we reach up to like 47 degrees on a daily. That's why these summer breaks are insane for kids. Okay. But I'm still sleeping with a comforter, a duvet, and a blanket. Okay, I still use long pajamas. My husband doesn't understand my body clock. But then I wake up and I said to him, it's not yet menopause. I don't think it is. But I wake up in the morning and I'm freezing and I constantly need body warmth. I'm like constantly looking for my daughter and him to hold me. I need to be held. That is me. I go to the office and I use a parka and I've got a heater and my colleagues are like, but it's hot. I'm like, no, it's not. My body is very different. So I know that Canada was never a dream. And like I said, people dream of things of where they want to be. And I never wanted to leave South Africa for no matter what South Africa as a country is going through. It was never my thing. Like this is what, and it's okay if you did. I have no judgment on that. And I think I remember chatting to Gareth Cliff, a really good friend. You know, he on his podcast he said to me, Sush, I just want to lay out first of all that you're not one of those South Africans that decided we're done with everything and I was like, no, I left because my husband got offered a great promotion and because I'm his wife and my this is where my family goes, where his boots are is where my heart is, and that's literally what the plan is. So, and again, like if you look at the bigger perspective, it's okay if you were one of those South Africans that did that. That's great. But the South African that I am is not somebody that sits on the side and then complains, or I've never badmouthed my country. I love my country. I love it with all of my heart. I wear Africa on my sleeve every day, and I'm very proud of our heritage, and that defines who I am. So that's the mindset that I'm in.
Absolutely, I get that. Because as somebody who follows you and has followed your journey for many years, when you moved, I think it was the biggest shock ever.
Hey, listen,
It
it was
was
a shock
like
for
the
me too,
most
okay?
truly South African person I could
Yeah.
relate to that was just like gone.
I know. And it happened really quickly. So that's the other thing I want to say. So, you know, when people plan their journeys for years, when Lee had mentioned America, in my head, I always thought, dude, considering how their visa process is and how immigrants get in, or just generally what's happened with their whole getting the correct visas, I didn't think in my head, like when Lee mentioned it to me when he was in the DRC, in my head, I thought, oh, cool, it's about at least a 3-year process maximum, because we've got to think about shipping. And I said to him, hey, I need to see my family. And I'd even said to him, okay, if it happens and you need to go there now, you can go there in July and I can join you with Pravani in December, because then she'll be done with Standard 5 or whatever. That's what I thought. Oh, no, no, no. The visa that Lee received was one of those very, those preferred skilled set visas. It's an L1 and an L2. And it happened. And all I knew was that he mentioned it. He came back. Then there was a lot of forms. It went a bit quiet around like June. And next thing we had the visa appointment in October, and 27th of November, we landed in in Tucson. And I was like, hey, this wasn't the plan, because I had barely had time to finish work or tell my family. My family found out about me moving at my dad's funeral, and that too by pure accident, because I hadn't even told my managers. And I said to my manager, listen, there's a story. I think we're going to be moving, but we're not sure yet. But I'm not yet ready to resign. And she was like, okay, so you know what? Let's just plan. And I said, I don't know when we're going, but the container hasn't. And it happened really fast. So, like I said, my mom always said I'm a little hurricane. When things happen in my life, it happens very quickly. If I found a job, I'm suddenly moving and everything's. That is who I am. I'm a little hurricane. I'm like that little tumbleweed that just goes. It's always spinning and busy, and if it happens, it happens quick for me. So this is it. This is how I got here.
It's not a bad thing. I think,
Yeah,
because it also is like whatever's meant to happen will
yeah.
happen.
If you told me I could think for 3 years about it, I don't think I would. I would have been like, you know what? I love my family. I love crab curry. How am I going to live without my spices? I don't know. I think, and I'm so glad it happened the way it did, because I think I'm also an overthinker and an overstressor, overanalyzer. And I'm so thankful. I do believe in this part, it was letting the universe decide. And I'm a big um, advocate for that. I know when it happens for good reasons. And yeah, and I'm glad I didn't have time to think about it and sit in it. And yeah, I'm so happy that it worked the way it did. So yes, it was a shock for many of my friends. Are like, you're leaving? Are you sure? I'm like, I know. Yeah. So
Yeah, I can completely relate to that, because
yes,
even for
yeah.
us, everything just happened so instantly. And we always said if we had to think about it, it would have been, maybe not now, maybe give it
Yes.
some time, maybe
Yeah.
another
Let's
year.
have kids,
And
or let's go
even
to
though
Cape
it
Town.
was part of the plan,
Yeah.
but still you always like would have put it off. So I think, everything happens for a
Yeah.
reason,
How long
and that's all
how long
we
are
hope
you
for.
away from home?
So it's now 2.5 years.
Oh, okay. So you've been away longer than I have. May is our 1.5 years. So that's how long we've been away. So Sure, it
Yeah,
happens fast, hey?
that's
The,
it's so fast.
that's what my friend saying. You've been there for a year and a half. I'm like, I know. It feels
Yeah,
forever.
yeah, us as well. We were talking about it the other day, and we were like, "Wow, we're halfway to citizenship here,"
That quick?
and I still can't speak Dutch.
Wow. So your citizenship process is shorter. We're
Mm,
we're like 98% to our green card. So that's our first big step. And then I think citizenship in the States is between 6 and 10 years, I think. It's changed.
yeah, I
A
think
lot
it's
of the
somewhere
things
around
are
there.
changing all the time. So yeah, that's excellent. Well done. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Good
so
for you.
exciting times ahead, but I
Yeah.
mean, such a big move. Um, you did mention now about your dad passing.
Yeah.
Did that happen while? So it happened when you were still at home, but like literally just before you left.
Yes. So yeah, my dad passed September 29th in 2022. Is that 2022? Yes, because we moved in November. I mean, obviously, I travel a lot to Durban because of gigs and emceeing and events and all of that. So, just to give you a little bit of an overview, my mom, unfortunately, her health journey has been very challenging. My mom is on the early onset of dementia, which we didn't know, but her within 4 years, my mom's just gone through a lot of stress and not a nervous breakdown, but a lot has happened to her mentally. And she's if you chat to her, you have normal conversations, and then her long-term memory is excellent, short-term memory sometimes, and it repeats here and there. So I had traveled a lot, and I think around July is when I sat my dad down and I said, "Hey, listen, Dad, Lee and I are having this conversation, and he's thinking about taking me to America." This is where I'm trying to explain that America was not solidified. I think when I was on the airplane, I was like sitting on this Delta. I'm like, oh, I'm here. It's happening. So July, August, kind of like, not sure. And then things started happening, and I'm like, hey, now we're getting a container. Oh, now it's getting bigger. And I'd had the conversation with my dad 2 weeks before he had passed, where he'd sat down with me. I remember it beautifully because my mom was quite sick, and we were trying to get my mom into a nursing facility. And my dad was like, "Okay, Sunshine," because that's my nickname. And he was like, "Okay." And he's the only one who keeps calling me Sureshnie. I have another name is Bhavani. Not many people know that. My home name is Bhavani, so people know me as Vani or Van. And Sureshnie was my school name, which he forgot how to. When he found my mom, she goes, "What are we going to name this child?" And my father was like, "I have no idea." And my mom was like, "Just go with this name." And my father was like, "Oh, I don't even know how to spell." And my father came up with Sureshnie. And this is my life. But he sat down and he was like, "Okay, Sureshni, tell me everything about this American thing, this Arizona. What do you need to do here?" And I said, "Oh, Dad, this is what I think I'm going to be doing." And I didn't even know much about Tucson. I'm like, he goes, "So you're going to stay in the desert, like in, oh, baby, you must take sunblock. So dark you're going to get." I said, "Dad, I don't think it's like the Saharan desert. I think that, I showed him some pictures and I said, but he's like, okay, does he have a job?" I said, "This is the only reason why we're going. So what are you going to do?" And then he gave me this beautiful list of things that he felt in his heart that he needed to tell me about all the things I need to do. And then he said to me, "Sureshni, I must tell you, I don't think, no, you said you can't leave me." Because my dad and I are like this. We're like absolute best buddies, and everyone knows that we've got a beautiful connection. And he's like, "No, you won't leave me, but I have to leave you." And I think in my head, I thought, "Oh, you're talking about the airport." Like, obviously, he's like, "No, I can't come to the airport, but I know that you can't leave me, so I'm going to leave you. I'll have to leave you." And I didn't think, and I not what it, within 2 weeks, my dad had passed, and I think that was just, and you don't think about those kind of things. And then you're sitting at the funeral, and my brother was like, "What were you and Daddy talking about the 2 weeks in the dining room?" I'm like, "Oh, you never believe this, but." I think he knew that. I think my dad knew. And my dad, unfortunately, just died of a broken heart. My mom had been in the nursing home for exactly a week. They dropped her off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At 6 p.m. he was there for the first visit, and I said, "Dad." And he phoned me. He's like, "Fine, I'm here." I'm like, "Where are you?" He's like, "I'm back at the nursing home." I'm like, "But Dad, you just dropped Mommy at 2 o'clock." "No, no, no. I just need to check if she's okay and if they're feeding her the supper." And he was there on the Sunday and a Monday. But I think my dad was so depressed. My dad was just, his business, he decided for the first time they'd liquidated his business. My dad was a super busybody. His partner in life, I mean, they'd been married for like nearly 55 odd years. He
The
only knew my
soulmate.
mom. Yeah, it's very sweet. And they're always together, constantly together. And I said to him, "Oh, you complain about your dragon." And he used to call it like his little dragon. And I'm like, She's not even there for 3 days, and now you're already like upset. And I think he was petrified because my mom, being in the mental state that she was, he was worried that, she'd be harmed, or, what if they don't bath her correctly? Because he was doing all of that. He was bathing and caring for her. And he's like, what if they don't feed her the way, she needs to be fed? That overly stressed my dad. And I do believe, but my dad, a lot of things that was happening in his, he'd written passwords down to things. It was very, yeah, I think, when I think in Hindu culture, when people say, oh, I think my dad
Mm-hmm.
knew it. I think he had created his closure for many things. Yeah, so that when my dad had passed, his funeral had happened, then his 16-day prayer. And I came back to Durban, and that trip for getting the visa, I felt his presence. I knew that I'd gotten his blessing, so I was okay with that. I think it was harder for me. The reason why I would never have left South Africa was always because of my mom and my dad. My
Mm-hmm.
thoughts were always like, but my dad would miss me. And then my dad passed, and I'm like, oh, okay. So like that one little person that I was holding on to that would have helped me like to stay, my anchor was changed. And I was like, okay, he did say it's okay for me to go, so it's okay. So yeah, so that came in when I landed in the States. It was 2 days before his birthday, and the first on his birthday we traveled to I said to Lee, let's go to this beautiful big mountain called Mount Lemon. And I think my journey of grief began, and it was the best. I cannot begin to tell you how it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Losing my dad and having 3 months before our container arrived, and then me immediately starting work here, was the best time to celebrate my dad, to process the grief, to understand and to reconnect with him spiritually, and to reconnect. And a beautiful pivot happens when you make a decision as big as this. It's reframing, it's restarting, it's reshaping, it's rethinking. Those are all the re's that were coming into my brain. And those 3 months of mourning my dad, I mean, I am in mourning forever for my dad. I'll always miss him. But that time of losing him, jumping on a plane, starting things, that hurricane little moment gave me a wonderful time to reflect and celebrate him. And yeah, so that was the big thing. I think a lot of people come to America, and they, or they land in a different country, and it's the job thing. They don't suddenly lose a family member before you. It was a
Yeah.
lot happened. I had to move jobs. I mean, I just left 5FM. I was working at Prime Media. I had to resign. I suddenly realized, holy cow, I've got to say goodbye to all this family, all the people that followed my radio journey, who never got to see me. And half my cousins like, Sush, we didn't even know you were leaving. What do you mean? So yeah, maybe my dad's death brought that all together for me. And yeah, so it was that for me. Like when people land in a new country, they worry about the jobs and adjusting. I was still figuring out like, hey, I lost my dad, and that occupied me in the greatest way, and it brought me so much peace. And that's how I started my expat journey.
I mean, condolences on losing your dad. I
Thank
mean,
you.
of all times for it to happen,
Yeah.
I can't imagine having that kind of loss like
Oh,
during like my
it
own move.
yeah, it's detrimental because
But at the same
you
time,
leave your family, you
yeah,
need your family. When you're
yeah,
away from home, the people, the anchors that you need is your mom and your dad or your siblings. And then for me, if you know the life that I've had, and my siblings, everybody knows this. I love my mom. My mom is very important, but my dad and there's something unbelievably special. So when you lose that, it shakes you. I promise you, my core was shaken. And when I
yeah.
landed
It's a
here,
part of you. It's a big
when
part of
yes,
you.
and when you're already crying for missing your home, and then now you're crying on top of like, and I think the conversations were so open. And like I said, it was, Dad, I don't know how to use this new washing machine. Daddy, how does this dryer work? Dad, I'm driving on the left hand side of the road. Do you know I still do that? I have those conversations with because I know, okay, again, let me give you context. I'm the child. When I finish my radio show in the morning on the Roger Good Show, we finish at 9. At 9:05, I'm in the parking lot, and what do? I phone Royal Promotions, my dad's business. Hi, Dad. It's always that. Hi, Sureshnie. And that is how I start my morning, okay? 9 a.m. And then when I moved to Prime Media, I was finishing work at 5. And I was leaving Santon, and between Gwen Lane and where we lived in Rand Park Ridge was a good 30-minute drive. And then if you had load shedding and traffic, it's a good 45. Exactly 5 past 5. Hi, Dad. That was my voice. And then my father knew. And then my brother would be like, oh, Dad, it's Sureshnie, and she's so loud. Oh gosh, here she goes. And then I like, Dad, put me on the speakerphone. I don't know how to use a speakerphone. I'm like, Dad, it's a little thing. And that was the conversation. So I missed his consistent voice. I've been speaking to my dad since the day I landed in Johannesburg, and my mom almost every day, every weekend. It's that, and to this day, that is what I miss. that ability to connect. And then I think that's for any child, anyone that leaves home, as even as an expat, if you haven't lost family members, it's that connection that you crave. It's that ability to pick up the phone and go, how I make the sour porridge. I made fish curry
Exactly.
here. I found madumbees here. And then I couldn't phone him and go, Dad, I'm boiling madumbees all by myself. I learned how to make a crab curry. I was having conversations with myself. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I wish my poor father, bless his heart, probably like first 3 months in heaven, probably said, hey dude, sorry, I need you to take care of this girl. Yeah, so I find
But what a
human.
beautiful way to like keep his memory alive. And you
Yeah.
always say, oh, you don't lose the person, like the person's always with you.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think a lot of people struggle with that part of like their mourning process or dealing
Mm,
with grief, is to understand how you can keep that person that you've lost with you.
mm,
And I think the way that you've done it and the way that you've just approached it, because it's incredibly difficult loss,
yeah.
just in general.
Yeah.
But for somebody that's this close to you and this big a part of you and your daily life and who you are at your core,
Yeah.
and in this time also while moving, to just embrace it the way that you had
Yeah.
is such a beautiful thing. But also for you to be in that position now where you are keeping him with you, he
Oh,
is
fully.
always with you.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I believe in the signs of the universe, and my dad always had a peace sign in every picture. So when my dad died, now we had to find the picture for the funeral notice, and my siblings are like, "Look at this, uncle. Every picture was a peace sign. Literally every my wedding photos, my sister's wedding photos, my older brothers, every picture with the grandkids. My father always had a peace sign. And then we're asking the family, okay, send us one snap of my dad. Just send, and it came from my cousin. We did this, which I think ties in so lovely with this podcast. We did our own little search for the Governor heritage. We were celebrating my grandfather's 50th memorial of his passing, and we called it the Grand Governor Gala, where we gathered all the governors and we got them together. And we did a whole event, and my uncle, my dad's younger brother, Jay Uncle, he printed this massive poster that it was like wallpaper that fits in his garage right now, but it has the entire family tree. And that is and every picture, and even there, my father was in a peace sign. So then
Full
my
peace.
dad, you laugh, Alicia, I promise you, it was actually quite funny for his funeral. Like, how are we going to get a picture? Imagine my dad's 16-day ceremony picture. He's got a peace sign. And my sister found for his, for the 16-day ceremony from the wedding with a one picture, and we have it in sequence. There's my dad standing straight, dad had a peace sign, and my dad was like, yeah, so we found this one picture. But for his funeral announcement, we used the one picture in this beautiful white suit. Again, a sequence shot, my dad and a peace sign, and then my dad, he happened to be captured with my father loved sunglasses. My father thought, if you ever grew up understanding Tamil movies and South Indian movies, my father was an MGR fan. My father believed he was MGR. And again, I'll tell you about my day. So, gosh, there's so many things happening in my brain. Anyhow, this peace sign thing has followed me even in Arizona. When I have sad days and I'll be crying, and there'll be a song playing on the radio and it triggers a memory, and then in front of me out comes a RAV4 or like a big fat American truck, and then the person has a peace sign on that covers the tire. I'll walk into Home Goods and then there's a peace sign there, and then yes, and butterflies. I was always my dad's butterfly. So that is how I remember him. That is how I celebrate him. I cherish him in everything. And so when I see these kind of things, I'm like, yeah, okay, the dude, shame he's not answering my calls right now, but it's fine. I'm sure he's dropping me signs like I
He's
spoke to you.
listening. He's just not telling you,
Yeah, but he
he's not
must talk
giving you
to
the
me.
actual feedback, but he's
Yeah,
listening.
like I just said to you, like I find hearts all the time. And
Mhm.
as you and I were chatting before the episode started to record, in front of me, and like I said, we've got this gravel and it's all in that shady pink color with gray, and in my line of sight right now there's a yellow heart stone, which I'm going to go back and collect it and show you. But it's looking at me and I'm like, yay, hi dad. So yeah, that's it. When I see it, when I landed here on his birthday, I went to Mount Lemon and we went into a beautiful aviary. uh, Lee's traveled to Tucson many times for 8 years, and he's been to this particular desert museum. The day that I land, there's a whole butterfly installation. My dad always referred me to his butterfly. And I got there and I'm like, Dad, it's your birthday. Dad, it's your birthday. And you're giving me the best present. And I stood in front of these butterflies. And there was just butterfly installations, like these massive mosaic butterflies. Then we go into the aviary and I'm parking and I'd never seen a hummingbird. And I sat down and I was wearing this puma top that had pink sleeves and my Lakshmi string was sticking out. And out comes a hummingbird and then tugs on the string. And Lee we had these tears because we were now going to be quiet, we're going to chase the birds away. And Lee says, "There's your dad. He's wishing you happy birthday." Do you know how special that is? So that's how I process grief, and I'm very open about it. I come from a family that are very expressive. And yes, while we talk about death, I've always had a morbid fascination with death. I'm very comfortable with it. As a kid, I mean, I could see how they wrapped my granny. I was never afraid. I always thought it was the best way to celebrate somebody's life. When you openly cry and you express yourself, it's not about being over with it. It's going through it. And I think that's what has brought me this far in the mindset that I have. Because heck, I miss home. I miss everything. We all do. My husband and I, we have moments where, we think about lamb chops are so expensive in Tucson. And I think about a nice mutton curry. When I find the bunch of dania at Lily's International Market, I phone my best friend Charlene. Charles, I found the dania. And she was like, Sureshnie, this is what makes you happy. Did you go and see Sephora? Did you go and see Macy's? I'm like, no, but I found the dania. And Charles, I found green chilies. And I'm growing a curry leaf plant. That is what it is. It's just reframing, and that's what I've been doing since I landed here. And I feel sorry for you
I think
hosting
that's really
me.
beautiful.
I really want to apologize. I feel sorry that you're hosting me because I am an occupational hazard. This conversation is going to start with one question, and you'll be sitting here, and you'll learn about all the things that I like. But I hope you understand.
But that's the point, right? That's the point, is to get to know Sush a little bit better, and in the context of, the South African Indian that you are, that we all really enjoy following.
Yay, I'm glad. Thank you. Please do. Please, I love keeping in touch with people.
You were just saying now about, the excitement you get when you find dania and green chilies and you're growing a curry leaf plant.
To grow a curry leaf tree. What do you get excited about?
I found... Yeah, same. So I brought my masalas with me.
Same.
So we had to get a freezer because I needed to store my extra masala.
Oh, is that what you do? You put your masala in the freezer?
Yep.
That's a hack. I didn't know this.
Stays.
Okay, I will learn this.
So I use all my spices, my ground spices. I put everything in the freezer, nicely packaged, and it stays. And then once I open it, I have a smaller container that goes into the cupboard, and then half the packet goes in that, and then the other half goes back into the freezer because...
Watch me finish this interview and take my B Nagia's everyday masala and throw it in the fridge. You said the freezer, not the fridge. Freezer.
Yeah, freezer.
You use B Nagia? And listen, I found a lovely South African girl. She's based in Toronto. I happen to, when you become an expat, one of the first things you do before you even leave, you join every Facebook group possible. And there's such an amazing, guys, it's a network. You are fine. If you're looking for Oma Rusk's buttermilk sliced, that's my favorite. Some auntie will have a plan. And that is the South African spirit. We are so ingenious. We are so excellent at networking. Ons maak 'n plan. I think it's just in our genetics to make a plan. We don't suckle over here, guys. We make a plan. So I found a girl, Reshma, and she makes the spices. And I said to her, hey, listen, I ordered some spices from Lily's, and I brought some, but I'm about to run out and whatever. And she was like, don't worry, this is what I do. And there's another gentleman named Rakesh. He's also on Facebook, and he is, I think, more towards Texas, and he also makes spices, and he stocks gorimas. But this girl, she grinds in and she roasts, and then from Toronto she ended up in Connecticut, and then when she was in Connecticut she sent it to me because now she's finally in the US and the postage would be cheaper. And then I got garam masala. See guys, the things that we are stressed. You think we are in America worrying about whatever. I'm worrying about how do I get my garam masala and my bean
Exactly. I found an India Plaza shop, and I found that they had curry leaves, they had green mangoes, ginger and garlic paste, tamarind paste.
Yes, girl, you're living your best life now.
So now what I do is I do one big order, and then everything just goes into the freezer.
I'm gonna absolutely do this freezer thing because today's so if you didn't know, also Saturdays are my cleaning days because we don't have helpers. Okay, the things that we take for granted. So when I woke up this morning, I'd already done. Okay, last night I did 3 baskets of ironing, and I love ironing. If there's anything that makes my heart pop, Korean drama, and ironing. Guys, I will win Olympic freaking medals. I will out iron you any day. But I love ironing. So I've done the ironing, and then on a Saturday morning, it's all the bathrooms and the toilets and the showers and mopping and sweeping. And I know after this, that's what I'm doing. But I told myself today is also my day to clean my freezer and my fridge. Then I'll take my masala like you recommended and I'll throw it in the fridge. Let's see how this works. So yeah, that'll be
It'll
good.
be perfectly fine. It doesn't even like ice up or anything.
Wow. And it probably
Even
lasts
curry
longer.
leaves. So even my curry leaves, I have them in like little packets, and then it goes in the freezer. And then as soon as I'm ready to use, I just take out, I put in, and then it goes back.
What?
Green
Okay.
chilies as well,
Green chilies can
and ginger and
freeze.
garlic. Green chilies can
Oh,
freeze.
I'm
For
making
me, they
so
freeze
many
very well.
notes.
I haven't
Okay.
had any issues, and I've been doing this now for 2.5 years. So
Okay, well, let's see how the desert treats my masala now. But thank you. That's a great tip.
yeah,
See, this is what South Africans do when you become an expat. You start to ask all
this
sorts
is
of questions. How do you use the washing machine? How do you remove the lint? Where's a good place to? What is my question has always been, what is the equivalent of ACC and Corenza? And they're like, oh, sush. I said, oh, what about Panado? And then hold on, I found Vicks. Then my whole life was sorted. I'm
I
like,
also found Vicks.
Vicks is next level, my friend, and it's apparently a lot of the Mexican culture or people from Mexico, and a lot of my colleagues who are Mexican, they're like, so you use Vicks? I'm like, girl, where have you been? And so they love, and I also share like my South African medicine, and if I have a headache or whatever, I'm like, try this Panado, it's life changing. So.
Do you know what I found here that I was a little bit shocked about? I found Tiger Balm.
Oh yes. Wait, hold on.
Like the OG auntie's
Hey,
little
that's
bottle
becomes
of
the
Tiger
snuff
Balm.
tin when it's done. Tiger balm for headaches, tiger balm for rashes, tiger balm for stress. You're getting divorced, tiger balm. Tiger balm is the
Mosquito
thing. Every
bites,
granny lives.
everything.
Yeah, listen, that was Vicks is the bougie Willie's version of tiger balm. Okay, that's when you know when your tiger balm goes to like
Private
public
school.
private school. Tiger balm is the OG. If you have tiger balm, your life is set. Okay, now I need to find. I'm making a list. I need to find tiger balm. Oh my gosh, yes, tiger balm. Oh, that stuff used to smell very strong. My dad used
It
to use it.
is.
I'm convinced it killed his olfactory regions, and my father couldn't like sniff things that were burning. I swear and he used to use that inhaler, that Vicks inhaler. I swear, my mom always tells us that. Don't put that stuff. You see, your father can't even smell. I'm like, it's fine. But at least he doesn't have sinus issues. Yeah. Tiger balm for the win, people. Business venture there for
So yeah,
Sureshnie in Arizona.
exactly. So this is exactly all the kind of things that experts actually look for. We look for all the things that remind us of home, or the things that we need from home that we couldn't bring in one whole lot the first time round.
Got it. Oh, yes, absolutely. Tiger balm. Tiger balm for the win.
Now, I want to get to a point that you just made now because it's so relevant to this podcast, like you said. But you were talking about your whole governors gathering that you had.
Yes.
And what I wanted to ask you is, what do you know about your family history and heritage, and like how your ancestors made their way from India to South Africa?
So my cousin Molly, I remember. So my grandfather, right, Mr. A.C. Kubasami Govender. It was his 50th memorial of his passing, and my grandfather was so instrumental and so well loved by his kids that they wanted to honor him. Same for my granny. Everyone. Well, I think they were more strict of my granny. She was very strict, but my grandfather, oh bless his heart, he has. If you see my grandfather's face, he is the picture of serenity and calmness. He is so polar opposite to who I am. I am an absolute hurricane. I don't think he would have appreciated me as his grandchild. He probably would have said she talks too much. But he passed before I was born. No. And everybody in the family know this. They know that, like I said in the very beginning, I was born talking. I was speaking very young, well before I turned one. And my mom to go. This child just keeps going. But my grandfather, his name was Aripatri Kupasamy Govender. And even how they spelled Kupasamy was, if you see his right, it's Coopersamy. So my Parvani was like, oh, look how bougie your grandfather was. He thought he was American. His name is Cooper. And I was like, no, man, his name is Kupasamy. But the Govender, I know there's a lot of, if you read, there's a brilliant book that I think every Indian in South Africa need to get. It's Inside Indenture. Actually, I always keep it on my shelf. It's one of the best books. And I worked with Dr. Ashwin Desai when he was at Lotus FM. And when Ashwin was creating this book came out and he did it with Ghulam Wahed. I had to get a copy because now I was curious about where we come from. The sad thing about a lot of us in terms of tracing our history, it's just broken down communication and the fact that so much changed along the way. So my grandfather came to, he was born in India. So I am actually third, my grandfather was born in South Africa. Yes, my great grandparents came from India. So I'm third generation South African. So my grandfather came, and my granny was Sundramal Subegum Naika. So she was a Naika. I didn't even know she was a Naika. So I was like, yes. I think even in my head, I always thought everybody was just a governor. But she came from the South Coast. So her family comes from, hey, governor genes are very strong. I'm very proud to be a governor girl. So she came from, I think, from the South Coast. She's from Umkomaas. That was where her family came from, and they did the banana plantation farming. My grandfather worked in the tobacco farming, but their family, when they landed in, they came on the SS Karanja. That was the ship that they came on, and they ended up on the Cape Manor estate. That was where they ended up. So that was where they people. So Mayville, Cape Manor is where they came from, and my grandfather worked. As a tobacconist, and that's what he did. And he also worked in the banana. Then he hooked up with my granny, and then suddenly he was a banana plantation farmer. This uncle was a mover and a shaker, but but really good looking, super skinny. Not because that he was starving or anything, but he was wow. My granny as well. My granny's cheekbones. Oh, it's my favorite thing whenever I look at her picture. And my mom's side of the family will tease, oh, your granny was a Pelkey. I'm like, yes. That lady was an oil of Olay queen. Thank you very much. Oil of Olay made business back in it because my granny was so obsessed with skincare and just looking. Oh, her sari. She had this beautiful sari pin that she inherited. So her lineage comes from Tamil Nadu. That's where they're from Madras in Tamil Nadu. So when they arrived, they ended up in Ketamana. And then obviously when she married my grandfather, she ended up living in Mayville. And that's where they started. And then Clarewood became, I was born in Clarewood. That's where the entire family house, they originally built this massive, you get those massive communal homes that has like
Mm-hmm.
10,000 rooms, and every family has a room. So that's where we started. And I'm very proud of my Clarewood heritage, Siddhar Road. That's where we established ourselves. My mom's side of the family, gosh, if I look at my great grandfather, his name was Srinivasan. Oh, my granny, my dad's mom, my dad's mom's dad was also Srinivas. That was his name, Srinivasan. And I just loved that name. I wish I knew more about him. They didn't know a lot because they were uneducated, unfortunately. Not uneducated, they were illiterate. Yeah, they didn't have an opportunity to be educated when they came here. My mom's side of the family, my grandfather was born in South Africa, and he as well. I'm third generation, and his parents also came from the south. My mom had an excellent relationship with her side of the family, and in her side of the family in India, they're also from the south. They had a very strong Christian and Catholic background. They did a lot of work in the ministry. Her cousin Philip, well, I always remember cousin Philip, that was his name. When she would travel back and forth to India, my mom was really good in keeping that kind of relationship strong. They were in ministry. We had Hindu, obviously, my mom comes from a Hindu lineage, but her cousins are all Christian, and they would say sister, and they would say to her, when they had left on the ship to come, they decided, as they were educators, they were preachers, they wanted to be in the ministry and all of that. So my mom has a beautiful blend of Christianity and Catholicism, but they're mostly Hindus. My great grandfather was a psychic, and that gift of ran through my grandfather, and my grandfather was Samikanu Eti, and they knew him in South Africa as Andrew, because my grandfather was super light skinned. And when
Ah.
he started working at Unilever, they're like, oh, my grandfather's a boxer. Also, I was very proud. My grandfather's a boxer. And when he worked at Unilever, he was a young supervisor. He used to actually, his job was to package the Sunlight green bar soap. His job was to put it in a little plastic thing. And my mom and I were having the conversation this morning. And this is why I cherish my mom's long-term memory, because she was telling me, oh, by the way, your grandfather's name was also Srinivasan, but we are from the Mudli side. Very proud of being a Mudli girl. And I think when she married my dad, she was kept saying, we're Mudlis. And I said, Mama, I don't understand. You were 80s as well. So my dad's brother, he decided when they landed in South Africa, I'm not sure what happened with the land or whatever. They decided to take on a different surname. So they were Etties. That was Etty when they left India. And the brother decided that the mother was a Yetrin, the father was an Etty, but they would go as Mudli. I don't know how that happened. So my mom, in her married surname, was a Mudli. And they all changed their surnames out of Eti to become Mudli. I think it might have been some kind of land dispute, or, you must understand, people came from India. They also came with their own kind of trauma, their own kind of family history and heritage, and their own little drama. And when they landed in this brand new country, so much happened, and they suddenly learned about how do we establish ourselves here. My grandfather's name even is Andrew in the book, because they also couldn't pronounce his. When they landed at different ports, everybody's name. That's why I'm convinced Kupasami is not spelled Cooper. It literally spelled Cooper, Cooper Sami. And I was like, I'm sure we're not the white version, but it's fine. But yeah, so so the Karanja is where my family. I think my mom's side came on the Belvedere, but both sides have done great history. Both sides have been in touch with the Tamil Federation. Dr. Raj Govender, when he was part of the consulate, the kind of work that he did with the heritage sites and stuff is incredible. But if you do get a chance, get your hands on books like Inside Indenture, and read the story, and read in like the history of the numbers. And we found them down to their numbers, and it's something that I absolutely treasure. And I treasure it even more because my husband, I learned about his history, and his grandfather comes from Germany, and the granny came from Scotland, and they had met along the way, and then they eventually ended in PE. And I figured out, like, hey, so Lee's also like fourth generation German and whatever. So the coming together of understanding your history is so important. My friend Kula, who used to be a DJ with me at 5FM, when she became an expat, she said, Sush, when you land in a new country, you know what it is, the biggest struggle for us is history. People don't know me as Sureshnie. They don't know that I worked all these years at 5FM, or this is, I love Bhangra, or, if there's ever my history. They don't know who I am or what I represent. And that is what you miss the most when you move to a brand new country. It's history. And when we did this research, and I tried to explain this to my cousins, and I do this with Parvani, I said, Mama, there's a reason why we're doing this. It's because it's important to know where you come from, and you understand what you stand for. You understand what you believe in. And then you look back, and I go, hold on, my grandparents were adventurous. They were just like Lee's forefathers. White people going and finding new land, Vasco da Gama discovering. My great grandparents were so brave to leave their little village, jump on a strange man's ship, get promised the world, land here as they were educators, and then like, oh, now you're going to work the field. My granny was my mom's mom was a nurse, and my grandfather worked as a supervisor at Unilever. On my dad's side, they were educators, and they were artisans. They came as textile and carpenters. The gift, that understanding why all of us, my parents owned a silk screen printing business. I asked, how come your brother does the same thing? How come your brother was so great at building cubs? Oh, that's because my great grandfather, that was their gift. Isn't that marvelous to find out? Like, they left in 1860, and that gift of carpentry or arts and crafts. I woke up and I'm great in embroidery. I don't know how I'm good at embroidery and sewing. And my father was like, that's because my mother was excellent at that. That was my mom, the thalki that she was, but she was excellent at that because it comes from her heritage. So this whole search and this whole journey to figure out where you are is not because you're ashamed of who you currently are. It's because it's lovely to know the beautiful thread, the golden thread that runs all the way from India, all the way down to now. Now we're sitting in the middle of, my child carries that. Like, I always remind her, like, Mama, this is where you actually come from. And you know what? You're a blend of two different generations, two different hopes. That's what you carry on your back. You are the flag bearers and the carriers of hope. I am, when people talk about your ancestors' wildest dreams, my grandfather would never have seen me, first of all, marrying a white man. Shame. I wonder what he would have did to Lee. But I would have said, hey, look, Tata, he's just as light-skinned as you, so let's go with that. But imagine if my great-grandfather knew that one day I was going to marry this German boy, or that I was going to be in radio, something that you never imagined. And I love that. And that inspires me, and that motivates me, and go, I'm proud of where I come from. And this is my definition.
It's so beautiful that you know so much. You know what I really find fascinating about everything you said is how sometimes we find links to even other people throughout history. Because you said that, the history was to Cater Manor.
Yeah.
And also that your grandfather was like really light-skinned. And, that was the same with me. So our story, which I'm waiting to get confirmation on, is that George Cater got one of the maids pregnant.
No, scandal.
And she ran away with the baby. And she had this baby, and he was like a white child. and he had to like constantly wear like his tika and stuff to prove that he was Indian, to be in the areas with the Indians, because white men kept coming and
Yes.
taking him out, and he grew up to marry a very, very dark Tamil woman. Like, they were complete opposites
Yeah.
in terms of like their skin color, and they had 14 children, one of which is my granny.
That's incredible. So look at that history. You came from the same farm that we come from, or that estate.
Exactly.
This is why I'm saying you. This is why, please, guys, and I know it's. Listen, if you ask the average South African Indian, and I'm happy to say this because this is where I hand my Indian card, and my brothers tease me. I have no idea how to play Tani, no idea. But if you ask an average South African Indian all the rules, they can spit out 5,000 rules. My man, if you can do 5,000 rules of how you can, I don't know all the terms and all of that, because when I see Tani, I get like stressed. I get stressed up. I can't get stressed up. But then when you ask them where you come from, what is your grandfather? No, I don't know. No, 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 no. You can do. There's Google. There's Chrome. There's so many devices. Lee did the same journey for his family with the My Heritage site, and Lee's side of the family have such a great history, and escaping. They're German, okay? So they were.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be with Hitler because the grandfather was the perfect Aryan race. Lee's super white hair, blue eyes. And the grandfather's like, oh, I'm not signing up for this nonsense. And he fled to the next country, and then he landed all the way in Africa. And when you search yourself and you understand where you come from, it can be done. There's so many apps. He found his coat of arms, and in the Rieder coat of arms, we figured out that he came from the place called Ulm, ULM, and the surname Rieder is pronounced Rieder. But when you go to Germany, it's the people of the reeds. Isn't that amazing? And that so where he comes from, the land was covered in reeds, and that's how he figured out, oh, that was the village. So likewise, when my mom would go to India and they would take her to like where her grandparents were born, and she had all these marvelous pictures, and this is where my father came from. Oh, now it explains why I carry my mom has the same gift as her great grandfather of the psychic, or the ability to have a trance. They were very, very traditional South Indian. Oh, they are so religious and so pious. And try to figure out, hey, mom, where you got this trance, or how do you think this? And it comes from her heritage. They used to have temples. And when they landed here, one of the first things they did was they all built a temple. They all got involved in those kind of things. And I think when you take the time and go and research, and it's fascinating that you like your connection to Cater Manor. There are so many of these sugar estates. You go and figure out Hewlett's, Tongaat, Amzinto, Mayville. Oh, the history is phenomenal. And if you can just find, like I said, this book actually gives you such a good understanding of who George Cater was. Kearsley. Kearsley College is in Joburg. Ever wondered how those names came about? Go and do this research. It is fascinating. And whilst you're busy asking your uncle about the rules of Tani and Man United and every Fast and Furious movie I've never ever watched, also with the same energy, ask yourself, where do you come from? Who is your grandfather? What is the name of your great grandfather? Because one day your kids are going to ask you, and I'd like to know that. Like when Pavani, one day, if she ever has kids and goes, hey, my kid is doing a project, like now, this is how the whole conversation happened with Pavs and I. Said in her school. Now imagine South African, when they see Pavni, they're like, she's Mexican. They're like, no, she's just light skinned. And they're like, but what are you? And she's like, and Pavni is going through her own little identification of like, okay, I'm like, Pops, you are 50% mom and you're 50% dad, but you're 100% you. But you are a biracial child. That means you have a white South African heritage and an Indian South African heritage. That's where you come from. That is your lineage. You have my grandfather's DNA as well as your grandpa's DNA on the other side. And that is the blend that you are. So at school, there was a project of saying, tell us about your history. And she was like, okay, just explain this to me. Are you from India? And I was like, you're not from India, neither am I. But this is where you come from. And then she's been doing the homework. But right now she's trying to study her South African identity. Because when she's in the States, they're like, okay, so you're from South Africa. How did you land there? Like, my parents were born there. And so that's where her version of history is. And I think it's so imperative and important when your kids start to ask you, just do the homework. If you got time to go into TikTok and you got time to sit through hours of YouTube tutorials, trust me, just find people like Dr. Ashwin Desai. Go find people like Dr. Raj Govender. Go phone the Heritage site in KZN and go. There is a list available of the ships. They've got the numbers, and then it's just a beautiful. Listen, you might not find everything, but it's fascinating. We actually had I must tell you, when we did the search on my mom's side. So Uncle Adlam, he's passed. He was the one. he's my mom's first cousin. Okay, so his dad and my grandfather were brothers, and they made that decision to change their surname from Eti to Mudli. Okay, but he owned this art gallery and he was very fascinated with the history. He actually had the trunk that they brought from the ship, and he had the saris. He has the saris, the woodworking equipment. He's had the ladles, the pots. Oh, it's phenomenal. And even on my dad's side of the family, they kept the sari that they arrived in. And I'm like, that's huge. That's amazing. You know, it needs to be preserved. Or the documentation, the paperwork, guys. If you do that history, it is beautiful and it's mind blowing and just gives you such beautiful reassurance that we've come from such a stunning place. We're a seed that has managed to sow itself in new homes. We've just repotted ourselves. That's what we've done. And we're no different to the energy and the adventure that our great grandparents had. Here you are sitting in the Netherlands. Here I'm sitting in the US of A. There are all of us all over the world. Isn't that great? Oh, I love that. I
It's
celebrate that.
amazing. It's so
Yeah.
amazing. And I think, when you look back at these stories and you do that research and you go and you try and find your own story, maybe you're not
Hmm.
going to be as successful in, getting right back to the roots or wherever it is. But you're going to find stories.
Yeah.
And whether it's your story or not, but the stories of our people, of those forefathers in
Yeah.
itself, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
There's so many stories that come up and you're like,
Yeah.
wow, those are our people.
Yeah.
And it fills me with such pride.
It does. And like my grandfather, I didn't know that he was a smoker. I'm like, oh, is it now? I used to smoke. My father was like, oh, when he died, he had the pipe and everything. And I'm like, how did he become a smoker? Like, surely you were not allowed for that. It's like, well, he worked as a tobacconist. He worked in the tobacco farm. That's where they put him. And he also loved bananas, but he was great at planting banana. Guys, it's a funny joke in our family that when my father had banana trees for years, for days. There was bananas everywhere. And I'm like, Dad, surely you can't be that obsessed with it. He's like, no, my grandfather worked in the banana. My father, but we learned how to cultivate this thing. My father's whole obsession in life was banana trees and mango trees, but that was what it is. And when you go back to like where his fathers come from, like that's what they did in India. They were not crab fishermen, and although the Govender lineage is about fishermen and that kind of thing, that's what their tropical culture was bananas, and he was excellent at it. But now learning that my grandfather used to smoke, and that was how he picked up the things I learned about them, and how my granny was so good at being a seamstress and where she worked, and how my Durgama, that is the name of my mom's mom, she was a nurse, and how she worked in those days, and when I look at the Mudli side and the Govender side, we are the left and the right brain. If the right, which part is the mechanical thinking or the people who are into what? Okay, so the creative side,
I have no idea.
100% the Governors. That is where the speakers are from. That is where we do things with our hands. We have this unbelievable ability to what the eyes can see, the hands can do. That is our mantra. And my dad's side of the family, 100%. That's where I think I get everything from, our artistic love. And my mom's side of the family, book smarts. Every one of them, teachers, doctors, accountants, they're all into money. They're all into understanding accounting, and that's when they lineage. The pastors that come from studying it, the family, they are into, a lot of them are radiologists. They're
Mhm.
doctors daytime, but they're pastors in the weekend. But the accounting side, they were the ones doing the accounting for when they landed the ship, and they were helping on the estate. And I think, now I see. I didn't get a lot of my mom's side, like the math side. Math's my kryptonite, but I think I got a lot of my dad's side. And like I
Yeah,
said, when you do your
I always
research
say
about, yeah,
I'm a terrible Indian because I don't have the maths brain. It
hey,
never came to
listen,
me.
I don't have Matt's brain. I've never watched Fast and Furious. I don't even support Man United, and then I don't know how to play Thani. I know
Yes.
I'm a hand. Here's my Indian card. I hand over, and I'm okay. When I went to ML Sultan, oh my god, when the Indian kids meet me, they're like, "Who are you? How is it you do not know what man you? How do you know? How do you? I'm like, I know WWF, I know wrestling, I know rugby, and because I went to this when South Africa group areas that broke down and we were allowed to have integrated schools. I was like the first Indian kid that joined Mount Park Girls High, and the Sureshnie that I am such a, yeah, I'm an interesting ball of information. I don't know how I am this Indian, but also I grew up thinking I always had a very white mind perspective. As a kid, I did everything contrary to what my family said. My mom spoke that in my, you're not going to marry an Indian boy. My mom said it since the day I was born. Not gonna, you speak so much. You're gonna be a broadcaster. I thank my mom because I said to my mom, everything that you said, it's not my fault. You manifested my husband. You manifested me being
You
in
spoke
radio.
the words.
She spoke it. But yeah, so and my love and like I said, I don't battle too much here because I was so exposed to multicultural that I've always had that very open mind that people battle when they struggle with figuring out who they are. I know I've always known who I am, and I'm very positive and very confident, and I'm good with who I am, and I don't come here and that's not my struggle. My struggle is here finding Danya. That's what my struggle is. And I think when you're so rooted and you understand who you are and you know what defines you as an adult, you learn. Yes, there are things that shift me and change me, and I'm flexible, but my mindset is a growth mindset. I don't come in here with this like, oh, now I need to remember all the things. No, South Africa is within my soul. It's in my blood. It's in my heart. It's the connection that drives me. No one will ever take away that pulse. But now that I'm here, I've just repotted. Now that version is coming here, and I'm water. I've always said that if you understand water, if my energy flows like water, that's who I am. I'm able to fit in all sorts of crevices, put me anywhere, and I'm able to adapt. And that is the power of that kind of mindset. When you have that growth mindset, and that again comes, that could never happen if my great grandparents were not those people, and if Pavani's great great grandparents were not those people. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And that's it for part one of our very interesting conversation with Sush. Join us for part two as we get to dive a bit deeper and listen to more fascinating stories from Sureshnie Rieder. I hope you enjoyed this one. Until our next episode, Shup, sweet, and aware. Lots of love.